Howdy, everyone. Frankie here, New West Reset. Hello. How's it going? Welcome back. Thank you very much for shooting in, joining a fella here for another one, another live one, as a matter of fact. New West Reset Live, episode 156 here today. Sunday, February the 1st, 2026. January in the rearview mirror. Goodbye, January. I could check one more off the list of the blustery, cold winter months. Spring is, we're just one day closer to spring. One day closer to spring up here. So thank you very much for being here. Thanks for winding down your weekend. For the show here, we're going to be looking at some old Calgary photos. This is actually just going to be a do-over of my very first live broadcast, my very first live show here on the channel 4 years ago. Actually, 4 years and 2 weeks. It was middle of January 2022 was my very first live show. 15th or 16th, whatever it was. You know, the 16th, 17th, 6, 7, sorry. I think my next one after that was March or April or May or something. And then not long after that, I started going monthly and then weekly, because very quickly became my favorite day of the week. Spending a couple of hours with you fine folks. Thank you for being here. So I thought we would just do a do-over on this show, because I actually recently watched a few minutes of it here or there throughout the, I think it was a couple hours, hour and a half, whatever it was. It was awful. I was terrible. It was good. I mean, not that I'm really any better now, but I'm just saying it was woo.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Anyways, it was still a good time. You know, you're watching the chat replay. Everybody was having fun. It was a good time. And basically for that show, I featured a bunch of really old and, in a lot of cases, beautifully ornamented buildings here in Calgary that they say were built in, like a year in 1907, or built in 2 years in 1892. Or, you know what I'm saying? It's like, come on, man. And they try to skate around some questions that people may have with these official stories by saying, oh, well, there was up to, a couple of dozen sandstone quarries here in Calgary at one time. So that's why a lot of these old buildings are sandstone. And it's, with all that sandstone available, quick, fast, and in a hurry, quick like a bunny. Not a problem. Still ain't buying it. Anyway, we'll get into all of that. So we'll do a nice little do-over. We'll look at some old photos of Calgary. We'll kind of look at Calgary in general, give a lot of you a reminder of, where yours truly is coming from. Got a lot of new faces and friends here of the channel as of late. So it'd be nice to do a little refresher, but also a nice little introduction as to, who I am, where I am, and what's going on, what the Sam Steele's going on around here. Anyways, thank you for being here. Appreciate it as always. If you haven't already, please do all the things, hit the like, make sure you're subscribed, it's still subscribed and all of that. It just helps to push me out into the thing, get recommended and whatnot. Just a little guy out here, so appreciate all of your help, all of your support. Thank you very, very much. If you've already shared and you're already subscribed, appreciate that. If you're watching this after the live, thank you very much as well. I appreciate you. So as per usual, links below. We're going to look at the Wikipedia, the official narrative of Calgary. And then we'll have a look at the goggle machine, the goggle maps, just to see where we are in the realm. And then we'll have a little bit of fun, take a mid-show break. When we come back, we'll look at some photos. We may actually start the photos, take a break, and then come back to more photos, because it's a good sized file, believe it or not. Considering the narrative out here is just like you would hear in the US coming out of Wyoming or Texas or Oklahoma, the Wild West, the rootin' tootin' cowboys and whatnot. Even up here in chilly, frozen North Canada land there, eh, buddy? Oh, for sure there, bud. It's going to be cowboys and all that stuff too. I know a lot of you think we live in igloos. I'm kidding. That used to be a thing. I don't think that's a thing anymore. That people are like, really, Canadians, it's not snow up there all the time? No, the snow all the time now is apparently in the States. So careful out there. There's a lot of people with blizzards, power outages, brownouts, blackouts. Be prepared, be careful. It's when it's cold and the power goes out, there goes your heat and lights and all that. That's not the best. It's not the best. Especially for them soft folks. Woof. They can't charge their phone. Oh, look out, man. Look out, man. Anyways, enough screwing around. Thank you for being here for the Sunday Funday show. As mentioned, links below for everything, as well as how you can get a hold of a fella. Email, BitChute, and of course, Rumble. Broadcasting live simultaneously on YouTube and Rumble. So welcome to everybody on both YouTube and Rumble. All right, enough of that. Let's say howdy to everybody in the chat box, see how everyone's doing. It's beautiful here today. I just finished going on incessantly about the cold Canada and all that stuff in the winter. It's +6 Celsius right now. So, doing a quick conversion there in my brain pan. It's about 44, 45-ish Fahrenheit. So it's probably warmer here than it is for, I don't know, Kathy Brott down in Kentucky. Howdy, Kathy. How you doing? Good to see you. Chassis Nix is here. Howdy, Chassis. Hello, hello. There's Ross Water the Tree. Howdy. He's down there in Missouri. And it's cold down there, too, if I'm not mistaken. Marit popped by from hidden in plain sight to say hello. But shh, Marit's sleeping now. Keep it down. Will you? Sig is here as well. Howdy, Sig. Good to see you. Hello, hello. Baja's in the box. Howdy, Baja. Channel 53. How's it going there, eh? Howdy, Hippie. Always good to see Hippie Shake. I hope you got some rest, Hippie. Got some food and water in you. Keep yourself. And tea. You're going to want some tea, which just, of course, then means you're going to need more water. Yes, 4 years. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Thank you, Kathy Broughton. Says, congrats, Frankie. Time flies when you're having fun. That's how I put it. That's what I say. Yeah, like I've said all the time, it's my favorite day of the week. All right, so I guess we should get the ball. Dino! Dino's here! Scared that guy walking his dog. The window's open, of course. He jumped. He's looking around like, who's yelling? Who's yelling? It's not a turtle. It's a dog. Yeah, you got to have that tea. That's probably what keeps you going over there in the UK, That Canadians, too. We drink a lot of tea. Apparently, Canadians love Earl Grey tea. Oh, I say, lovely. A spot of Earl Grey tea. Yes, quite. I don't know anybody who drinks Earl Grey tea. Everybody I know that drinks tea either drinks orange pekoe tea or they drink green tea or some kind of herbal concoction, leaves and twigs and stuff that you just put hot water on it or whatever. I don't know. Yeah, it's been it's been 4 years. 4 years of absolute
Shenanigans.
If you've been around that long, and a lot of you have, then you're pretty used to it. If you're a newcomer, you're like, what's going on with this Frankie guy over there on that New West Reset channel? It's crazy over there. You're out of control over there. Anyways, it's my pleasure. Here's the past 4. Here's to another 4. At least, eh? Oh, at least. Just tip of the iceberg there, eh? I'll tell you what's going on over here. I'm going to be giving away some stuff. Yep. Wasn't that long ago. There was doing some. Was it Christmas live stream or New Year? I don't know. I gave away some T-shirts and stuff. Yeah, I'm going to do that again. Yeah, that's right. That's right. As a thank you to all of you for all of your support, whether it's been 4 days or 4 years. Well, it's been longer than 4 years for the channel, but 4 years for the live streams. It's going to be 5 years for the channel in June, I think. That's crazy. But anyways, like I said, time flies when you're having fun. Yeah. Yeah, man. Going to give away some stuff. T-shirts. Let me show you what I'm talking about over here. Over here. Just get it. Yeah, there you go. So one of these, your choice. Get the OG black T-shirt with the channel logo on it. 100% cotton. And the heather gray. Aye, lass. Heather gray. The shenanigans, New West Reset, with the poor horses pulling the streetcar trolley. Yeah, shenanigans indeed. Oh yeah, I've got some clock socks and a new addition now to the channel, and this is hot off the presses here now. The Schmutz hat. That's right, the trucker style Schmutz hat. So I'll do that at some point in the show. I've got the wheel. So anybody who wants to enter for a free T-shirt or hat, you let me know which one you would like. A T-shirt or a hat, and then which T-shirt, which size. There's only a couple of stipulations. Eh? You got to give me your address. But in exchange, you're going to be getting my return address, right, on the parcel. So we got to agree we're not going to be doxing anybody there, eh? There's no worries on that. Actually, I've given away tons of these T-shirts over the years. I had these printed up a long time ago. In fact, some of them I had to get a new batches printed. I ran out of sizes, eh? And these are just stuff I've had printed up just as a thank you to folks for channel support. Maybe somebody's made a PayPal donation. Maybe I'm having some kind of contest. Maybe I'm celebrating some kind of milestone, like right now. There, eh? So yeah, I'll pay for postage and all that. You ain't got to worry. You just got to go to the box and pick it up, or maybe to the post office. You ain't got to pay for shipping or nothing. So let me know. I'll do I'll kind of do a reminder later on in the show, and you can let me know in the chat if you wish to enter. Like I said, you just got to let me know what you would like and what size. And confidentiality when it comes to address, you just email me. Email me your, well, I was going to say email me your email, but if you email me, I'll have your email and then we can correspond. And later on in the show, I'll do the spinning wheel thing and the random spinning wheel. We'll pick the big winner chicken dinner. Oh, that's definitely, you called it. Channel 53 says, I see the Schlitz heritage. That's right. I say schmutz all the time. I refer to that as the thin set, or the, sometimes they smear on a concrete or some kind of mortar or some, I don't know, some sort of schmutz over stone or brick to hide it, to make it look like it's the foundation, a concrete foundation of a building. But it's a phony foundation. And the stuff that they smear over the stuff that shoots down into the ground there, whatever it may be, some kind of rendering, I refer to that as schmutz. Because who knows what it could be, right? It could be stucco, like I said, a mortar, concrete, thin set, could be adobe. I don't know what it is, man. Anyway, thank you for being here. What do you say we get into this thing here? Well, let's start with a quick little refresher, a little reminder, or maybe just an introduction, folks, to let you know who I am and where, sort of who I am and sort of where I am. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm getting at. I'd love to have all of you over to my place for a barley sandwich, eh? That's a beer, for those of you that don't know there, eh? Anyways, I'm down here in Calgary, here in Alberta, up in Canada land. So there's Edmonton, the capital city. Calgary's right down here with where this heart is, right here. You can see it's right where the prairies and this sort of big, massive, sort of cooked out, worn out area here is. So it's just, Calgary's basically where the prairies end and the foothills into the Canadian Rocky Mountains here begin. So there's Calgary here. There's a bit of an urban sprawl, and it's, by Canadian standards, it's a pretty big city by now. It's, I think, 1.5 or 1.7 million, something there in about ish. Anyways, my place is right here along the Bow River. Well, a couple of blocks away from the Bow River, about 150 yards. The train that you often hear in the background is basically right along the river here. And, here. It runs along the river, up and downstream. Anyways, this is that Bow River. B-O-W, Bow River. And then we have another river called the Elbow River. There we go. Yeah, we're very creative with our river names here in Calgary. What are we going to call this? The Bow, because it's shaped like the bow from a bow and arrow, because of the indigenous peoples. All right, what are we going to call that river then? Let's call it the Elbow, because it's shaped like an elbow. Anyways, the confluence of both rivers is here where Fort Calgary still is. And you have the downtown core here, and I live just just west of the downtown core. And this neighborhood is known as Sunalta. But in the old photos we're going to be looking at, the town or / later city boundaries of Calgary were basically 14th Street, 14th Street Southwest and 17th Avenue Southwest. The only thing south of 17th Avenue here was a French-Canadian Catholic mission, which the remains of, we've looked at the channel here before, that are along here. And, cattle ranches, and the land was owned by the railroad still at that point. So they would supposedly, as we're told, lease the land to cattle ranchers to let the cattle graze in here. And then up what is in Bankview here, Mount Royal, this was all railroad owned land, so they say. Same as the neighborhood that I live in. And this was sold to I think at the city of Calgary by this point in 1905. And then they started developing it. So 120-year-old neighborhood is where I live. And again, the Rocky Mountains are right here, and the Bow River comes from, glacial and snow runoff from the mountain tops, and flows eastward and a little bit south into Calgary. But basically, most of the cities and towns are in what's known as the north-south corridor between sort of Calgary and Edmonton. To a high degree, for the most part. Not to say that there's nothing up here or down here, but this is kind of the busy section, the two biggest cities. Edmonton has about 1 million, and Calgary, 1.5 million ish. Anyways, fascinating to you, I'm sure. So yeah, sort of in the western prairies, the western Great Plains, if you will, up in Canada land. The Rocky Mountains are an hour's drive west of where I am, so it's pretty nice. I mean, there's no ocean or nothing nearby, but the mountains are quite beauty, for sure. Odin's Raven is here. Howdy, bud. Good to see you. Yeah, Edmonton's way up there. It's one of the northernmost capital cities in the realm, so they say. Definitely the northernmost in Canada land, that's for sure. Maple leaf key ring would be nice. Don't even have maple trees out where I am. Everything that's sort of west of Manitoba, like Saskatchewan and Alberta, those prairie provinces, right? The maple trees, they don't do well. They do excellent out in the east. But for some reason, when it comes to the prairies, I don't know, it's too dry and the soil isn't right, or I don't know. I don't know what it is, man. They don't do well out here. That's why maple syrup supposedly is so expensive, because it's, it just comes from a concentrated area. Basically, I have Quebec and Vermont. Quebec's got almost a complete monopoly. They got the maple syrup. The maple syrup mafia's got that on lockdown. It's crazy. Anyways, let's have a quick look at the Wikipedia just to see what's going on with that nonsense, with the history of Calgary land here. So it's the largest city in the Canadian province of Alberta. As of 2021, the city proper had a population of 1.3 million, metropolitan population of 1.5-ish million, making Calgary the third largest city and the fifth largest metropolitan area in Canada land. It's at the confluence of the Bow and Elbow River, southwestern portion of Alberta, in a transitional area between the Rocky Mountain foothills and the Canadian prairies. About 80 kilometers or 50 miles east of the Front Ranges of the Canadian Rockies. Oh, look at that beauty right there, bud. Ooh-wee. Roughly 300 clicks or 190 miles south of the provincial capital of Edmonton. And around 300 clips or 183 miles north Medicine Hat, 150 miles north of the Canada-US border. City anchors the south Calgary-Edmonton corridor. There it is, that north-south corridor. Economy is energy, like oil, financial services. Yeah, a lot of corporate head offices and banking and blah, 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 blah. Yeah, film and TV. Yeah, they film a lot of westerns, shoot 'em up westerns out here. TVs and movies. Yada, yada, yada. Okay. Origin of the name. Here we go. Calgary was named after Calgary Castle in Scottish Gaelic. Yeah, we looked at that in the channel before here too. This Calgary Castle. This one-horse, tumbleweed, ain't nothing going on prairie town back in the 1870s, excuse me, was named after this stone castle way over on the Isle of Mull in Scotland for some reason. Well, it was because of Colonel James MacLeod. He was the commissioner of the Mounties, and he'd been a frequent summer guest there at Calgary Castle in Scotland. So in 1876, shortly after returning to Canada, he suggested its name for what became Fort Calgary. So the Treaty 7 or Southern Alberta First Nations people are, Native Americans up here, Native Canadians, refer to Calgary area as Elbow in reference to the sharp bend made by the Bow River and the Elbow River. In some cases, the area was named after the reeds that grew along the riverbanks, reeds that had been used to fashion bows. So the two, it's one of the other of these two most obvious answers. There's a bend or a bow in the river, so we're going to name it the Bow River. That one happened to be shaped like an elbow, so we'll name that Elbow. These are what supposedly the ancient indigenous peoples who frequented the area were sitting around discussing, amongst themselves, what are we going to name this place there, bud? Oh, I don't know. They're chirping gull. They always have those crazy cool names. Not like my name, Frankie. Like, what does that mean, right? But their name is always like, Johnny Thunderhawk. Come on, man. Quit showing off your name there, brother. But anyway, they're sitting around talking, trying to decide what they're going to name the rivers. Well, we either name it we'll name it the Bow, either because it's got a bow in it or because we come down here to make bows. So I guess bows it is either way. Huh. There's Cousin Vinny over here on Freemason. Says, you just flashed up the fakest picture in the entire Calgary archives. Yeah, the one about the Fort Calgary. Yeah, there it is. It's not gonna do it now. There it is. Yeah, where they take a picture of the old wooden wall, I guess, that surrounded just the barracks portion of the fort, and then they just, basically what I'm gonna just refer to as Photoshop. It wasn't Photoshop back then, but in 1878 they just basically, I think what they do is they just layer the glass negatives, and then they do a print of multi-layers. They paint in or add in extra layers. So they, we need some Injuns sitting around with their blankets. And of course, because you got Injuns, you got to have a couple of dogs. Got to have a guy on a horse, a couple of guys on horses. A guy in a rocking chair. Got to have that for sure. Some guy smoking his pipe. Got to have of course, the flag, British flag, or Canada's flag at the time in the background too. Yeah, that's a crazy photo. Anyways, either way, and whatever indigenous peoples group that frequented the area and whatever their language, they either named it Elbow, or because there was a bow or a bend in the river, or because they made their bows for bow and arrows there. You just can't make this stuff up.
I don't believe you.
Of course, with all the local indigenous dialects, there's like 27 different names for Calgary, or Bow or Elbow, and some are synonymous with one another and some aren't. And some of them, whatever their indigenous word is for Calgary, it's interchangeable with the river. that part of the river where Calgary is now. Let's see. So you're like, okay. Anyways, early history here. Calgary area was inhabited by pre-Clovis people, whose presence traces back at least 11,000 years. The area has been inhabited by multiple First Nations, the Niitsitapi, the Blackfoot Confederacy, which comprise of these bands here, the Siksika, the Kainai, Kane, I don't know, I'm sorry, I'm butchering it, Piikani, and of course the Nakota and Tsuut'ina, and as well as the Métis. In 1787, David Thompson, a 17-year-old cartographer with the Hudson's Bay Fur Trading Company, spent the winter with a band of Piikani Nation indigenous peoples, Injuns, to use the parlance of their time, in their encampment along the Bow River. He was also a fur trader and surveyor, and the first recorded European to visit the area. All that at 17. The first this, the first that. Plus, I'm a cartographer for one of the world's largest companies, actually, probably the world's second largest company at that time. So they say, anyways, by their own narrative. Hudson's Bay Fur Trading Company. Got to get them beaver pelts over to Europe for their latest hat craze or whatever. Plus all the furs to keep people warm in Northern Europe. And they cornered the market in Canada land for like 400 years. So he's a cartographer for these guys, but he was also a fur trader with them and a surveyor for them. And he also happened to be the first recorded European to visit the area and stay with the indigenous Piikani Nation. Piikani. People need hats. Yeah, that's right. People need hats. Anyway, so he's doing pretty good for himself as a teenager. I mean, he could just have easily died out here if he spent the winter along the Bow River. I can tell you right now, yeah, it's +6 Celsius right now. You know, creeping up 45 Fahrenheit. But it's only because we're having one of those Chinooks where the warm winds blow in over from the west over the mountains. We get these warm, dry winds, and the temperature goes up above freezing. Snow melts. Sometimes it can last a week or 10 days, and then it goes back down to, freezing temperatures. Oh, it's fun. But anyways, so this guy named John Glenn, no, not that John Glenn, a different John Glenn, was the first documented European settler in the Calgary area in 1873. So we're just jumping ahead 100 years here, basically, from 1787 to 1873, 90 years. I guess nothing happened in that whole time. And then in the spring of 1875, 3 priests, Lacombe, Remieux, and Scolan, built a small log cabin on the banks of the Elbow River. Then in the fall of 1875, that site became the post of the Mounties, now the RCMP. Northwest Mounted Police Detachment was assigned to protect the Western Plains from U.S. whiskey traders and to protect the fur trade. The border, protect the border, patrol the border, and maintain law and order out here in the wild Yippee-ki-yay West, you see. Howdy, Rock Rods, Wooden Chrome in the box. Good to see you. Hello, hello, hello. Bacon and eggs sounds delicious, Kathy. Kathy Broughton. Bacon and eggs, my favorite. Yeah. Kind of like French toast with bacon, too, once in a while. Or bacon pancakes, where you're making the pancakes, but you put the bacon in the pancake. Come on. That's fantastic. Anyways, Inspector Ephraim Brisebois led 50 Mounties as part of F Troop North from Fort McLeod to establish the site. The I.G. Baker Company of Fort Benton, Montana, was contracted to construct a suitable fort. We want to keep the Americans out, but we're going to contract an American company to build the fort for us, for which we will then be using to protect the border against American whiskey and fur trade interests in this here Wild West, as yet pretty much unclaimed land. Does that sound right to you at all? I don't know.
Oh, shit!
That's just as likely, I think. Anyway. You just can't even make this stuff up. So they built a log store next to the fort. Yeah, and that became the Hudson's Bay trading outpost. So now you have a couple of log cabins out there. The first settler, the John Glenn guy, or whoever he was. And then, oh no, these guys, the three guys, the three French guys, they built the log cabin. And then he comes along and they build another log cabin. So one's for the Mounties and one's for the Hudson's Bay Fur Trading Company. And then they build the fort. That's crazy. In 1877, the First Nations ceded the title to Fort Calgary region through Treaty 7. Got bamboozled into signing over the land, I guess. In 1881, the federal government began to offer leases for cattle ranching in Alberta, up to 400 square kilometers or 100,000 acres for 1 cent per year. Under the Dominion Lands Act, basically newly acquired land. We're just going to claim this land but through treaties signed with the people that were already here and move them off. Then we'll open up the land for pennies on the dollar. Canadian Pacific Railroad, oh, of course, they reached the area in 1883 and constructed a railway station on the CPR-owned Section 15 neighboring the town site across the Elbow River. The difficulty in crossing the river and the CPR's efforts to persuade residents resulted in the core of the Calgary town site moving to their side of the river. And then this is when the post office was anonymously moved across the icy frozen Elbow River during the night. Because wherever your post office is where your town or city will be. Railroad wanted it on one side of the river, but it had already kind of sprung up on the other side. So they supposedly, under the cover of a blustery, frozen winter night, in the dark, some anonymous persons moved the post office across the frozen river to the other side. And I guess the next day, everybody just woke up in the morning and just shrugged their shoulders and said, all right, so be it. Like, I don't get it. Yeah, we should do that. Just move it back. Get a couple of fellows with some 4x4s and some winches. Get some nice, hefty wooden sleds, and we'll just slide it back across the frozen Elbow River. Come on, man. Anyway, so, then they sell the land to the Calgary town site and start developing the land. $350 for a plot of land, or $450 for a corner lot. These are the ones surrounding the railroad station. So in the early decades, it was not expected that the railway would pass near Calgary. Instead, the preferred route put forward by people concerned with the young nation's defense was passing near Edmonton and through the Yellowhead Pass. However, in 1881, CPR changed the plans, preferring the direct route through the prairies by way of Kicking Horse Pass, along with CPR, August 1883, brought Calgary the first edition Calgary Herald, published on the 31st under the title Calgary Herald Mining and Ranch Advocate, yada, 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 yada. So as soon as the railroad comes in, boom, up pops the newspaper. And this railroad, by the way, wasn't even a passenger railroad yet. It was just a commercial railroad, just hauling in goods and supplies. Old World Mi'kmaq in the box. Good to see you, brother. Kwe Nita. Talking about the official history of Calgary. Building the fort here and establishing the railroad and the newspaper. Just right off Jump Street here. So residents of the now 8-year-old settlement sought to form a local government of their own. First weeks of 1884, they bought the Royal Hotel East, circulated 200 handbills announcing a public meeting. On January 7th, 1884, at the Methodist Church. At the full meeting, Riley advocated for a bridge across the Elbow River and a civic committee to watch over the interests of the public till Calgary could be incorporated. Yada, yada, yada. And they get into all the political mumbo jumbo. The town of Calgary, 1884, turned out to be a success. However, 2 dark years lay ahead for the fledgling community. The turmoil started in late 1885 when Councillor Clark was arrested for threatening a plainclothes Mountie who entered his saloon to conduct a late-night search. When the officer failed to produce a search warrant, Clark chased him off the premises. However, the Mountie returned with reinforcements and arrested Clark. Clark found himself before the magistrate, who was a proponent of the temperance movement. Basically, stay away from the hooch. Was appalled by the open traffic of liquor, gambling, and ladies of the evening, shall we say, in Calgary, despite prohibition in the Northwest Territories. That's right, Alberta wasn't even Alberta yet. We were still the Northwest Territory. Anyways, there's all kinds of shenanigans going on with that. So then you had Murdoch and other members of the council were shocked, and a public meeting was held at Boynton's Hall, which a decision was made to send a delegation to Ottawa to seek an overruling of this judge by the Department of Justice. Just kind of skimming through this here because a lot of this is who cares. But this Murdoch fella here, who's Calgary's first mayor, he returned to Calgary in 1885, only a week before the election, to find the town in disarray. Shortly before the 1886 election, G.E. Marsh brought a charge of corruption against Murdoch and council over irregularities in the voters list. Yeah, there was a bunch of voting fraud going on with this Murdoch guy. And then, of course, the fire. Oh, ain't there almost always a fire? If it ain't a flood or a tornado or cyclone or a hurricane, it's a fire. Calgary had only a couple of days' peace following the November election before the Calgary fire of 1886 destroyed much of the community's downtown. Part of the slow response to the fire can be attributed to the absence of functioning local government during 1886, as neither George Murdoch nor James Riley was capable of effectively governing the town. The newly ordered chemical engine, it's one of those old-timey pump, it builds up pressure through boiling water, to put the fire out, spray the water, with the hoses and whatnot. For the recently organized Calgary Fire Department, Calgary Hook and Ladder, Bucket Court, was held in the CPR storage yard due to lack of payment. So even though the town is supposedly burning down, the railroad, who basically founded the town, no, we're not giving up your fire quenching, fire extinguishing equipment. for payments in arrears, apparently. Just going to let the town burn down. Anyway, so get this. Then members of the Calgary Fire Department broke into the CPR storage yard on the day of the fire to retrieve the engine. In total, 14 buildings were destroyed with losses estimated at $103,000 Canadian back then. But nobody was deleted or injured. Depending on what site, it's anywhere from 14 to, I believe, 18 buildings. So it depends what source. Bradley Johnson in the box. Howdy. Good to see you. Yeah, I leave town for a week. Yeah, the post office is gone. Town's burning down. That's ridiculous. I don't know. I just don't know, man. Anyways, new town council sprung into action, drafting a bylaw requiring all large downtown buildings to be built with sandstone, which was readily available nearby in the form of Paskapoo sandstone. Paskapoo is the native indigenous word. Blackfoot, Tsutsina, I believe, dialect for the sort of stony slope or hill. It was called Paskapoo. They have a ski slope on it. And it was called Paskapoo for years. And then part of the 1988 Winter Olympics here in Calgary, it was renamed Canada Olympic Park. Anyway, following the fire, several quarries were opened. Oh yeah, they just opened her up. Everything got burnt down, and nobody's got a pot to piss in or a window to throw it out of. But people got money to just open up several sandstone quarries. Prominent local businessmen, I guess, were not affected by these fires. In February 1887, Donald Watson Davis, who was running the I.G. Baker store, wasn't that American company that was contracted to build the fort, was elected MP for Alberta. Why is a guy who's working for an American company being elected to local government? Oh, that's fine. It's business as usual. Anyways, yada, yada. It goes on. A little bit more of the official his story, but I mean, we've already found a bunch of shenanigans and nonsense. Here's the one and only existing photo of the great Calgary fire. So great and burning down so many buildings that you just got people standing around this open pit looking down into it. But you got to put all these goods and everything out here in the middle of the street so the photographer could take a photo of this and make it look worse than it already is. Than it really is, I should say. Anyway, link below. That's just the Wikipedia for Calgary. Yeah, that's, I've looked everywhere for more photos than that photo. Just any other photos. But there's already a newspaper in town. There's been a newspaper in town for years, for 2 years at this point, supposedly, by their own story. So you think there'd be at least one photographer running around like a shutterbug, just snapping away at this historic fire that's burning down the city. That they had to destroy buildings to create fire breaks, one of which was this George Murdoch's business. All right, so where are we at here time-wise? 50 minutes in, so 10 minutes before the hour. Just enough time to do the draw. I might do 2 draws, so let's call this the first of 2 draws for a New West Reset t-shirt. And again, your choice of either the original. Let me just again pull it up here for you and show you. Again, your choice of either the original black New West Reset logo or the heather gray shenanigans. I stuttered over that one. Shenanigans t-shirt. Or if you want a hat instead, got the hot off the press, well, not that off the press. I've had it for a couple of months now. The Schmutz Strucker hat. Your choice. If you would like to be entered into the draw, again, these are free. I'm giving them away. Postage paid. You ain't going to have to pay for shipping or nothing. You just got to email me with your contact information so I know where to send it to you, what size you wear, what your preference would be, hat or shirt, and what size shirt. Now, I will have your address, but you'll be getting my address as well. So we've got this, get this nice trust thing going on between us, you see. So I'm not going to reveal who you are if you choose to remain anonymous, and vice versa. So if you would like to be entered into the draw, let me know in the box, in the chat, by giving me give me a number 1. Just type in the number 1. Again, postage paid. You're not on the hook for nothing. This is just my thank you to all of you for all of your support. If you already have New West Reset swag, you can still enter. You can still enter. Now, my contact information, as mentioned, and as always, is in the description box below. So my email address is down there, but you can get a hold of me on Rumble and BitChute as well. And again, I just need your mailing address or PO box or whatever so I can actually send you the physical goods and what size you like. And that's it, man. You ain't going to have to pay for bubkiss. All right. Got quite a few folks here. Fantastic. Good. So, yeah, and don't worry. I ain't going to dox you or nothing. That's not my style, man. I don't think that's cool. I don't think that's copacetic. One bit. Not one bit. All right, so let me put some... just scroll up here. Everybody's put a 1. Who's going to put a 1? Got title. Title's in there. Okay, got title. KJ. Fantastic. KJ. Kinley Jackson. Channel 53. I'm just entering you folks on the wheel here. Guess I can screen share it, but let me just... everything squared away here. Michelangelo. Where are we here? There we go. I like this wheel app thing. It's very handy. Baja. Ross, water the tree. Russell, Russ L, which is Russ, Roos, Bradley Johnson, Odin's Raven, I'll make sure I get everybody. Just double checking, scrolling, making sure. Anybody to miss out? Scrolling. Okay, let me just pull this up and review it with all of you here as well. the wheel of names. We've got Turtle, Kinley Jackson, KJ, Channel 53, Michelangelo, Baja, Water the Tree, Russ, Bradley Johnson, Odin's Raven. Did I miss anyone? KJ, Turtle, yeah. Channel 53. Looks like we're all good, right? Good to go? Good to go. Thank you very much. Yeah, 4 years of the live show. Coming up on 5 years for the channel. It'll be 5 years in June on the channel. All right. Howdy, Angel. Angel Dreams in the box. So I'm doing a draw here for a free giveaway. New West Reset t-shirt or ball cap, trucker style ball cap. Not going to have to pay for shipping, nothing like that. Last call for entering the draw. You just got to be willing to share your mailing address, your contact information with me so I can send you the item. Let me know what size you wear on the t-shirt. Thank you very much, Odin's Raven. Yeah, it's been, time flies. Hippie shake. Boom. Hippie shake. Like I said, if you already have one t-shirt, that's, or both t-shirts, right? Because people who donate through PayPal, I'm sending you a t-shirt or a hat regardless. If I can get your address out of you. All right, Sandra. Sandra is in the box. Let's Yas Gurley is Sandra. Angel Dreams. Gotcha. Okay. Like I said, I'm not going to share your private information, your contact information, your mailing address or anything. I'm going to send you a parcel. Everything's going to be paid for. You'll have my return address on the parcel. So that's kind of the mutual agreement. So yeah, if you email me, and then in the email, let me know if you would like the t-shirt or the hat, the ball cap, baseball hat, and then what size you wear in the t-shirt. I go from small to double XL. I have a few double XLs left. I think only a couple, though. Anyway, looks like that's it. Last call. So we've got Turtle, Kinley Jackson, KJ, Channel 53, Michelangelo, Baja, Ross over at Water the Tree, Russ L, Bradley Johnson, Odin's Raven, Hippie Shake, Sandra, which is Yas Gurley, and Angel Dreams. All right. All right, so I'm ready to give this a spin in 3, 2, 1. Click to spin. Click. Random draw. Random. Boom. A big wiener. Winner, chicken dinner. Angel Dreams. Boom. Okay. So I've pulled you out of the draw. I'm going to keep this open. And I'm going to do another draw after the break. But right now I'm going to take a mid-show break. And as per usual, give you a sneak peek at your upcoming midweek vintage footage video. If you're new here to the channel, every Wednesday I upload what I call vintage footage. You know, old black and white footage that I could find. I try to keep it Canadian content, and I put it together with some music. I put that up every Wednesday, but I like to give you a quick little preview of it. I share it with you here on the Sunday live show. But Wednesday's the vintage footage. Friday, boots on the ground. Back here Sunday for the live show. So without further ado, let's give you, this one is, I think I'm back. I'm sorry, I got to do it. It's the Canadian in me. I can't help it. I got to do the winter themed video. This is, it's a short but sweet one. 1924 Olympics. It's about 2 minutes and 15 seconds long. So smoke them if you got them, but make it quick. We'll see you on the other side of 2 minutes and 16 seconds. 1924 Olympics. All right, stick around. I'll be right back. Cheers. All right, and we are back. Welcome back, everyone. Howdy, Frankie here. New West Reset. New West Reset Live. Episode 156 here today on the show. We're looking at old Calgary photos. I'm doing a do-over of my very, very first live stream from 4 years ago, which was god-awful. It was just terrible. Stumbled through it. We were having a good time with everyone in the chat or in the box, as per usual. Always a great bunch, so thank you. But yeah, I was on shaky ground there or something. I don't know what was going on. It was rough. It was rough. I had fun, but I don't know if it was nerves or it was probably nerves. It was probably nerves. We'll chalk it up to nerves. Anyway, if you're just joining me, thank you very much for being here. I appreciate it. Welcome to the show. If you haven't already, please do all the things just to help a fella out. If you're watching this after the live, thank you very much. Appreciate all of you for being here. Thanks for winding down your weekend here on the Sunday Fun Day Show. Woo! Gotta just give a quick shout out and a congratulations before the break, did a drawing, a draw. I had a little prize giveaway. That's what I'm trying to say. Angel Dreams. Congratulations. Doing the happy dance. There you go. Let me because I don't know if you were there when I was showing the merch, the swag. So this is the OG New West Reset t-shirt in black, 100% cotton. This is the Heather Gray Lassie. Aye, the Heather Gray, 100% cotton. Shenanigans t-shirt with these poor horses pulling this trolley. That's shenanigans. So let me know your preference and what size you would wear. These are men's sizings, right? So if you wear a ladies medium, you might need a man's small or whatever. I don't know. Or if you want to go with the hat. Just had these done up not too long ago. The Schmutz trucker hat in the Schlitz beer logo. So let me know your choice. But yeah, congratulations to you. I'll do another draw at the end of the show. How's that? You're getting a twofer. How do you like them apples? Huh? Yeah. Again, I had these printed up ages ago as a thank you to everybody for all of their support behind the scenes. People like Hippie Shake. I mean, Hippie Shake got a t-shirt. She was one of the first to get a t-shirt. Cousin Vinny got a t-shirt. Where is he? Jumping ahead. Excuse me. Cousin Vinny's got a t-shirt. A couple, anyway. Yeah, the hat's pretty cool. I was trying to think of something that went with the schmutz word, but was, a clever font or logo. And I don't know. The Schlitz beer just kind of hit me. But not in that way. Just thought I was being so clever. Pastor of Castles is here. Howdy, howdy. Good to see you. So yeah, just contact me via my email, which is down in the description below, as well as everything we've covered so far and how you can get a hold of a fella on YouTube, BitChute, Rumble. My location map is down there. And of course, as mentioned, people who donate through PayPal, you're going to get a t-shirt or a hat. People have already. No strings attached, no postage paid for on your part. I cover everything. You're just going to get a knock on the door and the postman. Can I say postman? I'm going to say postman. Just going to hand you that. I got a parcel here for you, Turtle or whoever, right? Hey, Angel Dreams got a parcel here for you. Just like what's his name from Mr. Rogers? Speedy Delivery. What was his name? I don't remember. Anyway. What do you say we have a look at some of these old rootin' tootin' Wild West photographs of Calgary? These structures, we are told, are going to be built between the Fort Calgary, 1870s, late 1870s, through to right around WW1. Now, not all of them are going to be some of the oldest structures, because some of them supposedly burnt down in the fire. And we have had a number of floods here in the 1880s, 1890s, early 1900s. So some could have just done got washed away, I reckon. Maybe the river froze over and people just pushed it across the frozen river like they did with the old post office. And people just, we just lost track of where it was, I guess. And again, a lot of these aren't going to necessarily be perhaps the most embellished. But you got to remember, we saw at the top half of the show prior to the break, according to the Wikipedia and many other sources, prior to the Mounties being here in the 1870s, there really wasn't much going on. maybe the odd fur trapper. Of course, the indigenous First Nations bands and tribes. Cowboys and Indians, basically. This is one of the old ranch houses. This is actually on my list to explore come spring or summer. This is in what is now the Inglewood Bird Sanctuary. When you think of a Wild West ranch house from the I believe this one's 1880s. Do you think of a two-story brick and mortar with like a recessed vestibule, doorway? I mean, the style maybe with this long covered porch and, the antlers hanging. Surprised he doesn't have a wagon wheel over here. The Sam Steele are these big giant bones or whatever these are. Or mammoth tusks? I don't know what those are. Here's the old Dean house. This also was moved across the river, but they couldn't wait for the river to freeze on this one. No, they just put a bunch of logs across the Elbow River and just dragged it across. Yep, that's right. Of course, they had to get it around the barracks of the old Fort Calgary here. But that's a whole different live stream that we looked at in the past and all that cockamamie nonsense. This is a house in Inglewood. Again, stone, sandstone here, and brick. Because you just, back in the Wild West of the 1890s, like when this was built, you're gonna bother to do all these curved surfaces in your old timey rootin' tootin' cattle ranch house. All this brickwork here for this bay window jut out, which is actually basically another turret. This is in Ramsey, which is on the other side of the train tracks from Inglewood. Just, nothing to see here. Just a corner turret of my home with a conical dome on it. It's not the best photo. My apologies, but these homes we're told were all built in the late 1880s to very, very early 1900, like 1905. This is the Patrick Burns residence. Now we're getting into some of the highfalutin homes. Local cattle rancher and meat processing robber baron. That's basically what he was. He cornered the market on the meat processing plants and slaughterhouses and all that in the, again, 1890s, early 1900s. There's just nothing much to see here. Just his house, just his private residence. Built out of that sandstone, so they tell us, with these castle-like details even around the chimneys and the air exchange systems. And you got to have some carved wacky coat of arms here and whatever these figures are. Downspout gargoyle here peeking out. Not to mention the stone wall and this beautiful gate. Again, the rootin' tootin' Wild West here in Calgary, Alberta. This is Beaulieu. Beaulieu. That's French, don't you know? That's right. Beaulieu. It's the residence or former residence of Senator Lougheed. It's locally known as Lougheed House. Because Beaulieu just sounds so fancy, doesn't it, with the French?
I can't understand a word you said the whole time.
Do you eat some peanut butter or something?
Yeah, you sound like a dog with peanut butter on the roof of your mouth.
I think what you are hearing is my accent. I am French.
Here it is. It's pretty much in this same condition today, still stands. Some of the more opulent landscaping has disappeared. The stairs and these very familiar balustrades and these fencing are still there, but these urns that are being used, or flower pot style, or urn style flower pots, whatever you want to call them, they're gone. This fountain is gone. It's now just a circular flower garden like these other ones. But all these strange tiers are all still there, although there's more flowers and trees that have been planted here, so it kind of hides these very, very obvious tiers on this land. It's angled, if you can see here. It's not a 90-degree 6 or 7 foot face here. It slopes downward. Very unusual. A lot of these trees are still here, but some of them are gone. You can see there's a wall in the back. And what we can't see just out of frame is the carriage house. The carriage would come through the gate and go along here, and Senator Lougheed and his family would get out and go into the house here, and then the carriage would go around to the carriage house in the back, which is gone. So as a reminder, all of these are right here in Calgary, and this still stands. Unfortunately, the Burns mansion is no longer standing. I think it came down in the 1930s or 40s, but don't quote me on that. It may have been later. A lot of these, the early houses, they're all still here in Calgary and still standing. This one's just been moved. But the Burns mansion is gone. This Beaulieu, the Lougheed house, is still there. I used to live in a building next door to this building, so I'm very familiar with this structure. This place is still there. And this church you see in the background peeking out is still there as well. Howdy, Shawnee B. Shawnee B in the box. Good to see you. Captain Carr is here. Hello, hello. How you doing? Just a modest interior shot of the sort of the front parlor in the Lougheed house. Look at all this nonsense up here. I mean, it's beautiful. Don't get me wrong. I'm not making fun of it. It's gorgeous. But again, the narrative of Calgary was a Wild West cowboys and Indians town with election fraud and railroad shenanigans and the Old Town Fire of 1886 and, train robberies and all that stuff. I don't know what house this is, but we're just going to move it. We're going to move it across. This looks to me like it might be 17th Avenue, that street that used to be the old town or later the old city boundary. Because I know the tram or the trolley had 2 lines on certain avenues, and 17th Avenue was one of them. Meltological in the box. Howdy. So yeah, I'm not sure what's going on with this. I'm not even sure the date of this photo, to be honest with you. It's 30s, 40s maybe. Either way, even today, this is not easy to move a brick home without it, cracking or whatever. Like, this is not exactly an even surface, smooth, even surface. You know what I'm saying? All right. Now we're going to get into some of the streetcar narrative, which began in 1905 here in Calgary. But this photo is from 1910, or at least that's what it says. First streetcar This is the first streetcar traveling northbound, emerging from the subway underneath the CPR tracks. Yeah, the Canadian Pacific Railroad has the right-of-way through the city of Calgary. So if you don't want to wait for the train, you got to build a bridge or a tunnel because the train ain't waiting for you. It's pretty much standard procedure for the railroad. Anyways, this is about 1910. The first cars began traveling between downtown and the exhibition grounds, which is the rodeo grounds, the Calgary Stampede Rodeo. It started going out there in 1909. That's Victoria Park. There's a photo of the municipal streetcar here, the trolley, tram. This is Sunalta Block. This is in my neighborhood. This is 14th Street right here. This is 12th Avenue. I live a block down on 11th Avenue and a few blocks in. We've explored this building, which still stands here on the channel, Boots on the Ground. They've painted it 18 million times now, and they've removed this beautiful crest here on the top. Of course, they monkeyed around with it, but it's still, still standing at least. The Center Street Bridge with the walk-through sort of little, almost guardhouse inspired, although there never were guards stationed in here. But these are lions carved in sandstone. There's 4 of them on this. These are little jut-outs with lower lighting, sort of lookouts. So you could take photos or sit there with your sweetheart and hold hands as the trolley goes by. So the barns and repair shops for the trolley system. Look at this thing, almost looking like an armory, doesn't it? This is an old photo from 1910-ish, and already it looks like this was a larger arched opening that's been bricked in, and they've put a window in there. You see? This too looks hanky. So I don't know what is with this. Perhaps a former dirigible or airship hangar, much like I think armories, or a lot of armories were. Possibly. I mean, they tell us it's part of the infrastructure for these things, and I'm sure it was repurposed for that. I don't know. Nice shot of the trolley going out to Bowness Park, which was Calgary's trolley park at the end of the line. But instead of it being a full-on electric park, we did it more Wild West Canadian style. It was more of a nature park. It had a pond where you could do canoeing or kayaking or paddle boating. There was a swimming hole. There were a few rides, the merry-go-rounds and tilt-a-whirls and whatnot, the little Ferris wheel. There's a miniature train that goes around the park. There's a barbecue and picnic area. But they had like the little overnight cabins that you could rent, and like little camping and stuff in there overnight or over a long weekend. And they would have fireworks. In this pond where you could go canoeing, they had a gazebo just popping out of the water in the middle of this pond. And they'd play music, like waltz music of the day, early 1900s popular waltz music. And shine different lights on this fountain that would shoot up out of this thing. And people could hear the music and paddle around. And that's where these trolleys going out here into the middle of nowhere, that's where it's headed, to Bowness Park. Of course, the land for Bowness Park was donated by some wealthy philanthropists, as usual, right? Here's the trolley going down 8th Avenue or Stephen Avenue, southwest. We've done a full mudflood walkabout tour of this entire avenue on the channel before. Some of these buildings still remain, although not all of them. There's the old Hudson's Bay building here. Gonna have a look at a few city street scenes now of old Calgary, the old rootin' tootin' Wild West. the late 1800s, early 1900s here. And you tell me if this sounds like wild cowboys and Indians out there on the wild frontier. This is the CP rail station. Once they finally did build a bridge to come over the river into what is now the downtown. This is the Palliser Hotel. Train track is behind this building. You can see this glorious structure. Unfortunately, it is gone. It's now a parking garage. There's a nice bird's eye. This is Stephen Avenue and I believe 1st or 2nd Street Southwest. But look at this conical dome. Yeah, no problem. Conical dome, sure. Conical dome, hey, no worries, bud. How about back here? Yep, no problem. Just get a bunch of cowboys to just whack that up for you. Yee-haw, no problem. Big, huge arches, arched windows everywhere. I mean, the turret is hard enough, again, with these curved angles. But then to go and do all this, and what's this nonsense, by the way? What's with all these techie-looking pole-like things sticking out? This building, gone. This building, you guessed it, gone. This church, gone. This building back here, this old school, gone. This is still here, though. Whew, dodged a bullet with that one. Actually, this is still here. This is gone. I think these got knocked down. I mean, look how sturdy these are, made out of this stone. So they say. Probably brick and steel and stone. They're declared unstable or unsafe. But really, it's because they can't explain it away. You know, you get a couple of decades in and the city explodes. The railroads come in. A lot of people are now moving in. They say, well, wait a second. I thought there was some Wild West town like 15 years ago. How come you got these fairy tale conical dome castle looking buildings? You know, you almost think of a Clint Eastwood movie set when you think of a Wild West town that the Mounties had to get sent in here to build a fort to protect because of the whiskey runners and all the crazy shenanigans going on. Schools and libraries and you name it. They started supposedly building them out of the sandstone. They just started popping up. Like 1888, like a couple of years after the fire of 1886, so around 1888, right up until WW2 or WW1, excuse me. And after that, it's no longer practical. We could just got a pretty good brick thing going on now, and plus concrete's pretty good. A couple more of these cityscape photos for you. The business district. Again, here's that Palliser Hotel and that train station. It's gone. This building with this curve, it's gone with this crazy smokestack. It's gone too. So is that. It's now, it's funny, it's almost where the smokestack is now where the Calgary Tower is, which almost looks like the Seattle Space Needle. You know, your standard, you know, tower with looks like a flying saucer on top. Yeah, Calgary's got one of them too. Because you can see the beautiful Rocky Mountains to the west if you're up in that tower. Not in this photo, obviously, but looking north, there's that old school again. That's gone. There's the Center Street Bridge. Still got them dirt streets, though. Don't worry about your paved sidewalks and your stone and brick buildings. What's going on with this, by the way? Holy moly. It's a baker's confectionery and fruit stand, essentially. And he's got all these little bobules and doodads on here. Okay. Not sure what that's about. By the way, this is the Calgary Lathers Union parade or float in a parade, or I don't know. Some kind of crazy labor union demonstration. So in terms of the street and the transportation, there's no cars, you'll notice here in this at this point yet. We've got electric and telegraph, dirt roads, and we don't have vehicles yet, or like cars, petroleum, gasoline cars. So by the official narrative that we checked out with the Wikipedia at the top half of the show, you'd expect to see this and this. But I mean, this is nuts. The population demographics in Calgary were, in fact, pull that up for a second here. Just to see what's what real quick. $1891, 3,800 people. 1901, 4,000 people. I do recall several articles saying that in around the time of the Great Calgary Fire, 1885, 1886, 1887, 67. Sorry. I'm just goofing with you with the whole 6-7 thing. I know it's stupid. I'm just goofing on you with it, that's all.
You know what I mean? All right, we're having a good time.
Anyways, around that time, there was about 500 people in Calgary. So, 1,900, 4,000 people. So let me pull that back up here. Now, some of these are getting into, WW1 era for the photos, but the buildings are obviously older than that. King Edward Hotel. This is a Stampede Parade, our big rodeo. This hotel is actually still there, and we've looked at it on the channel before. Boots on the ground. Beautiful yellow brick building. That church that's no longer standing. This one is still there. That's the Knox United Church. This old school is gone with the cupola. The cupola is actually still in existence. It's in a park a couple of blocks from where this building originally stood, but this building's gone. This building is gone. I would expect to see this in a Wild West town. Building like this, even something fancier like this, sure. Maybe this is your school or your post office or something, okay. Like maybe some government building. Your town or city hall is going to be a bigger, more robust building. But I mean, all of this weirdo tech with the domes. I thought this was supposed to be Wild West cowboys and buffalo and indigenous native Indians. What does this architectural style have to do with the Wild West of North America? You get this Greco-Roman cupola up here. You get some kind of Turkish-looking thing or something. I don't know. Something out of Aladdin, man. I don't know. They're supposed to be rootin' tootin' cowboys, but instead they're building big stone edifices with this wacky tech on it. This isn't the best photo because we're getting into some of the postcard stuff here. I mean, they've got the tram or the trolley going, but the road is still crappy dirt. But sidewalks are paved. We've got massive structures, some of them in incorporating concrete. It's not all sandstone and brick. Some of it is concrete at this point. 1905, 1910-ish, electric tram. You can't concrete the street. I mean, I know they didn't have asphalt then, but, blacktop asphalt, whatever you want to call it. It's another postcard, 8th Avenue. That's kind of Calgary's claim to fame these days for tourists and stuff, is you want to see a bunch of beautiful sandstone, intricately carved historic buildings that go back 120 years, 140 years. Stephen Avenue or 8th Avenue. That's where you got to go. And admittedly, yeah, I've looked at tons of these buildings. And as mentioned before, I did a subscriber meetup and a mudflood walkabout tour of this whole avenue. But when you keep in mind the narrative, and it doesn't match, we're seeing the old Alberta Hotel with the saloon. Well, you wouldn't picture that being made out of bloody stone with peaked arched windows, would you? You'd think a saloon would be a wooden building like this or like this. Maybe if it's a hotel, it might be this size, but I don't know. Maybe I've been conditioned from the Clint Eastwood movies. The Lee Van Cleef films of what the Wild West used to look like up in Cheyenne or whatever. I don't know. But that's the same narrative we have here for Calgary. Forts and mounted police and cowboys and ranchers and indigenous people and buffalo. You got these big, massive 3-story stone buildings, but they've got these really low, what I'm going to call mudflood windows here. This one's so low that we're just going to put the entrance on the second floor here. But this is supposed to be this one-horse town. Again, this I can expect. Some kind of Sears and Roebuck house that these folks probably bought these houses from the Hudson's Bay Company. And it would be delivered to your little plot of land, your, 1/8 of an acre that you got cheap, that you bought from the railroad. Maybe these are railroad employees in these row houses. This I can expect for a Wild West young town, but I mean, all this back here, they always put the big stuff at the back, or they always take the photo from a funny angle to make it look how they want it to fit for their narrative. But then you get into Mount Royal, formerly known as American Hill, and you get more turrets with conical domes. This house is still there. So is this one. Many of these are now gone. You can see they're up on these high hillsides, stone walls. Again, paved curbs with a grassy area and then a paved sidewalk, but a dirt road. Here's that school, the Central School. This is gone, but that's the cupola that still remains. It's part of an entrance to an underground parking garage. How's that for thumbing their nose at us, huh? This is King Edward School. I looked at this past summer with its 3 little domed cupolas on top. Massive arched entranceway. Ah, yes. The Central High School. Looked at this a couple of times on the channel. Why a couple of times, you're asking, Frankie? Well, let me tell you. A couple of reasons. First of all, it's just a beautiful sight to behold. A sandstone three-story school with a basement, or what they call a basement, separate boys and girls entrance, all kinds of carvings and embellishments. But not only that, it's a one-year wonder, built in 1 year. This photo's from 1908. I think this was built in the year before this photo was taken. 1 year. Because you need all this on a school, all these bobby rolls and all this fancy. Like if it was a Capitol building or something, it looks like a Parliament building. You know what I mean? Like it looks like it should be a Capitol building, but Calgary's not the capital. It's Edmonton. There's the Holy Cross Hospital with all of its tech up here. Again, this is from a postcard, so it's a photo, but it's been enhanced. They'll go over it with pen and ink or pencil to highlight stuff and create shadows for contrast. But, you know, as we've seen with this old-timey photo manipulation, they've been known to pencil in or ink in horses and buggies or people or kids on bicycles or whatever. But it's to do what they can to, again, get that image or that narrative ready for this postcard. You know, and a lot of these postcards are pre-WW1 era. Here's the armory, looking like a stout and squat castle. Looks like it should be, well, at least twice as tall as it is. This roof line here, if you wouldn't be able to guess, has a massive arched window with a big opening on either side. So again, looking like a dirigible hangar, but then they just decided to go all medieval castle on this thing and then just gingerbread it for shits and giggles, I guess. This thing was built in, I think, 1904 or 1908 or something like that. You can see the trolley comes right up to it and then turns and changes directions, but this thing's incredible. And again, I've done a boots on the ground on this thing too, front and back. Actually, all four sides of this thing. Gone right up to the door, gone right up inside this arch. Here's the Calgary Public Library, and yep, you guessed it, Carnegie Library. Are you kidding me? Cowboys are just dying this badly for their education that they need this fancy ass building with these Phoenician shells or whatever these are. Not to mention these urns here and here. Here. All this scroll work, this dental molding, all of this stuff. Pillars with these capitals. Even just this. Just come on, man. Oh, there he is there. There's old Jedediah getting his learning on. An old Wild West Calgary. You need to, I mean, this, come on, man. And this thing is still there. Looked at this too. Central Memorial Park is here. This whole area was part of the glorious old pre-reset part of Calgary. That included Victoria Park, where they had a whole bunch of old world buildings knocked down, where they had the Dominion exhibition. That was Calgary's version of World Fairs, all across Canada. From 1867 right up until when WW1 started. That was the last one they had here in Canada. And they were Canada's scaled down version of these big world fairs. They were Canadian fairs, the Dominion exhibitions. And Calgary was a host city. And the area in Calgary that hosted it was now Victoria Park, where the rodeo and the stampede and all that is to this very day, the exhibition grounds. But if you follow that in a straight line from that area, you have important old structures either within that space or flanking it, like Old City Hall, this library, a couple old churches, old schools that were torn down. This church, it's actually next to that park. Unfortunately, all this beautiful hedgerow and all of this is gone now. The street and the church is still there. It's a very impressive, it's one of the most beautiful churches in the city, in my opinion. But this beautiful landscaping all around it is gone now. There's some big, tall building here now, a medical center or some garbage. But it's Calgary's First Baptist Church. This thing's a mind blower. I'm actually working on a separate project around this building. I don't want to, let the cat out of the bag, but this is Calgary's first Roman Catholic church. They say this was built in the 1870s, late 1870s, right around the time the fort was built. But this was that French-Canadian Roman Catholic mission. They built a couple of stone structures like this. They built this. They built their parish hall. They built a convent. They built a school. And a few houses. It was eventually annexed by the city. This is taken from an old postcard. But this building was knocked down in the 1950s. They rebuilt a new Roman Catholic cathedral right on the very spot. It's larger, but it's not nearly as glorious as this. It's a nice 1950s brick church, don't get me wrong, but I mean, it doesn't have these onion dome inspired towers with all of this exquisite work, not to mention the gorgeous stonework and this coining effect. Big, huge arches. Again, not the biggest, but a beautiful building. Again, I'm working on a separate project that has to do with this building because there's some funny stuff going on in the narrative with this building, as you might suspect. Here we go, Knox United Church. If you remember, it did have that other little church next to it, which is gone. And then this replaced it. It's the parish hall, or the, not parish because it's not Catholic, but the church hall. This tower, the photo doesn't do it any justice. This tower is huge. Again, I've got boots on the ground on site of this thing, and it is magnificent. There's the Bank of Montreal on Stephen Avenue. Again, you can see the tram. We're getting a little later now. Again, right around WW1. Got some automobiles, but look at this. This is cowboys only trust their money with banks that have these pillars with these huge ornamental capitals on them. And this big, massive, redonkulous, 18, 20-foot entranceway. I mean, here's people, average lady. Let's call Nana here 5'3". So let's call this 15 feet. This building still stands too. And it's overkill, man. Cowboys really need that? Not to mention all this, again, down Stephen Avenue. A Wild West rootin' tootin' town. There's the old city hall. This still stands too, with its glass cupola with dome on it, and then it's got a little cupola and dome on each of the four corners. Again, with this massive, ridiculous one in the middle, made of glass. Something weird going on up here too. Now you can see here, there's lower doorways. Then you also go up to get in. Is that a dog going up the? I think that's a dog just going up or coming down the front steps of City Hall. Sure, why not? But you can see all the main entrances, you've got to go up, but then there's also points of access underneath. Either under the stairs, like in this case, or below this sort of balcony. Howdy, Sage. Dragon Sage in the box. Good to see you. Yeah, for all that cow money. That's right. That's absolutely right. You got to put all that cow money in something like this. Hippie Shake saying looks Moorish. You're referring to this one, I'm thinking, right, Hippie? That's the one that you're referring to. I think I would agree. I think I would agree. All right, it's back to the City Hall, made out of that same Pascapoo sandstone. Just don't forget, after that fire, they're just knocking up all these buildings. Who's knocking them up? You know, out of 3,000 or 4,000 people. And again, you know, a third of that population are actually cattle ranchers and farmers that live outside of the town or city limits. But they're part of the, you know, the greater Calgary area. Like they're considered residents of Calgary. They come into town to vote and, you know, what have you, and so on. Howdy, Morgan. Morgan in the box. Isabella live. This is an exquisite building. And again, up here too, you've got all these little details, you know. And this is sandstone. This dental detail. It's just crazy, man. Crazy. Portals here. Here's the land titles office and the courthouse. The land titles building is gone. This building here. But the courthouse is still there. Why one remains and the other have to be knocked down, I do not know. Greco-Roman style. Again, this your courthouse needs to. Cowboys need this courthouse, do they? All right. Just noticing this crazy smokestack back here or whatever that is. I don't know. It's not there anymore, I could tell you that. So there's the courthouse. It still stands today as well, but it's no longer being used. Not as a courthouse. Massive skyscraper here now, where this house is actually. This house and garage, yeah, these aren't there anymore. Now it's a big skyscraper, which is the courthouse. Some pretty low windows here. Beautiful polished sandstone. Ah, yes, the fire headquarters with its tower and chrome weirdo dome on the thing. Tech on it and all this weirdo stuff. If these are flagpoles, then why are there no flags on them? If they're lightning rods, then why do most of these buildings have 3 or 4 of them or more? Obviously a staged photo. Hey, let's show off Calgary's fire department. So they got the ladder set up with all these jackasses up on it, but I mean, you know, this sandstone this is a brick and sandstone. So all this lighter color material here you see is brick. So is this completely necessary? Where were you guys when Calgary was burning down in 1886? We needed fancy fellas like you, but nope, you weren't around. Yeah, it's a belfry free of bells. I like that. Yeah. Just a weird photograph. Here's the Ogden Hotel, the Hotel Ogden. It's a military convalescence hospital, even though it's called a hotel. I think maybe it was a hotel and it was repurposed as a hospital and then went back to a hotel. Anyways, I have yet to check this place out, but I believe this place still stands, at least from what I quickly researched about it. Because when I was looking through old photographs, I was like, wait a second, the Ogden Hotel, I don't recognize this place. I know where Ogden is. Yeah, and if it was again, well, the thing is that yeah, it carries it down into the ground, right? And grounds, quotes, grounds the electric current. But yeah, if it's such a great idea to draw the electricity out of the sky to you or to your building, then how come you don't see lightning rods sticking up anymore? Here's that beautiful Palliser Hotel. Built in a couple stages, actually. Originally, it was only this tall, and then it had a rooftop garden, and a tea room, and outdoor dining, and all of that. And then they later on built 3 more floors, and they've lost that rooftop garden. This is where people like the king and the queen and the duke and the premier or prime minister or president of this, that, or the other. This is where they stay when they come to Rootin' Tootin' Cowtown. There it is there. Prior to that extension of the 3 floors. This is that train station. You can just make out a passenger car here of a train. And this is now gone. But this was your train station. So you need to be all fancy for the steam engine to roll into town. And of course, you got to have a big garden here, too. Imagine how beautiful this would have been along here with all these trees, these beautiful fancy lampposts or streetlights, whatever you want to call them. These glorious buildings with all these arches and all this embellishment, but then still gardens and green spaces. This is the Devonish building. This is only a few blocks from where I live on 17th Avenue. It's a weird looking photo. I think it looks like it was prepped maybe for a postcard or one of those business pamphlets. But this was an apartment complex that was built in the teens, supposedly. I know, finished in 19, you'll have to forgive me, pre-WW1. But it doesn't have this castle-like fancy detail on it anymore. They've knocked all of this off. They've knocked this crest shape off. They've sort of rounded it, and they've kept this because this is built right into the brickwork. But they've dumbed down all of these points, and they've knocked off this sort of castle tower look. They've kept these, oddly enough. But even again, you can see that these windows are really low here. I mean, they're almost, well, they are even with the sidewalk, depending on where it slopes. And then I've got to go up a set of stairs to get into what they're calling the main floor. These big columns and capitals and all these bijou balconies. It's now, a restaurant, sushi place. There's clothing stores and boutiques in here now, but it was apartment buildings. Looked at this on the channel, inside and out. We've actually tiptoed around and inside this place too. This is 17th Avenue. This park still exists. They've added a gazebo here and some more trees, but all of this is gone, including this Studebaker dealership with these huge arches and these keystones. So even for a jalopy dealership with a crummy gas pump out front, it's got to be fancy with arches. The unfortunate thing about this park now is that, well, you guessed it, the ne'er-do-wells spend the majority of their time there. Here's another fancy bank for cowboys, Bank of Nova Scotia. This one a little bit of a later build date, 1930. The original branch out in Nova Scotia itself, founded in 1832. But it's gorgeous. This is on Stephen Avenue, of course. Here's another shot of that Bank of Montreal. Again, give you an idea of the size of these columns or these pillars. Massive pediment here. Just for cowboys. This is now a brew house, I believe, but it was a brewery. Then it was converted to an electrical substation building. But you can see how it's been monkeyed with. I'm not sure what deal is there. But they really monkeyed around with this thing. But look at these mud flood windows down here. Like, are you even trying? You're not even trying. And then just all of these, knob and tube copper wiring just bolted to the outside of this building. Yeah, this is electrical substation. Really, you need a pediment and pillars and a big fancy entrance. And it's got to be a big stone or brick building too. Well, I guess for electricity, you wouldn't want a wooden building, but they tell us this was formerly a brewery. How does it go from transition from being a brewery to being an electric substation? But I mean, come on. Like, if you're going to tell me that they built this building like this with basement windows like this here, then, I mean,
you guys have officially made me lose my marbles!
because there's no way. There's just no way. Back to that mission district, the French Canadian Catholic Mission. This was their mission parish building, their parish hall. But this was the Canadian Northern, later Canadian National Railway Station. They commandeered the building or took it over after the mission area was annexed by Calgary. And they converted it to a railroad station. They built this extension off the back. You can see the original building is stone. They built a brick extension. Then they built this sort of covered platform. The train would just roll up here. You better make sure you apply the brakes there, brakeman. Because if not, that train is just going right over this log shitty crap here. Right into the road. But again, this building still stands. It's now the Calgary Opera, I believe. I think it's the Calgary Opera now. There's the Center Street Bridge Lions. 4 of these bad boys. And then some bison or buffalo, which is shocking because I always say, why do you guys always put lions on stuff in Canada when we have other majestic beasts like grizzly bears and buffalo? Oh, there's a buffalo. They have 4 of these lions on this pedway here across the Center Street Bridge. Bridge is still there, but the trolley obviously not. There's the fire hall in the background, fire headquarters. There's another brew house or brewery. This one I'd never even heard of. The Mountain Spring Brewery. This photo was taken in 1920. An older building, but yeah, you got to have fancy brickwork and arch windows and stuff to brew your beer for the cowboys that get thirsty on the dusty trail, I guess. Oh, sure. Yeah, the moose is pretty majestic too there, bud. Yeah, Kathy said the majestic moose. Here's Hull's Opera House. You can tell because it's painted very crappily right on the front there. 1893. Not really sure why you need portals in an opera house, not to mention all of these techie doodads on the top, but fine. Unfortunately, this building is gone. I wish it was still here. It later was a city market, farmers market, and different booths. You had your cheese guy, your butcher, your fishmonger, farmers market type idea. But look at this brickwork in here. Are you kidding me? Cowboys must have sure loved that opera. Oh, sole mio. I didn't know us rootin' tootin' cowboys spoke Italian. This is the St. George's Island Bandstand. Just out on an island in the middle of the Bow River. Oddly enough, St. George's Island is now the home of the Calgary Zoo. So all of this is now gone because you got to have animals in cages that we can see in the wild, like bears and wolves and buffalo and eagles and hawks for some reason, and moose and deer. Giraffes and elephants too, but right this is the back of the Carnegie Library. There's a place to hitch and post here for your horse. So, Jethro here can get his learning on. But anyway, just as fancy on the back of this with all of this embellishment. There's that school that's gone. This little school, Halton School, is still there. It's a little sandstone school that we've explored on the channel. This building is still there. This gloriousness flattened. You can see this was part of that Victoria Park sort of old world, World's Fair type exhibition. This is now looking from the back of the Carnegie Library in the opposite direction. So we're looking this way. Now if we stand here looking, we've done a 180. All of this glory is gone. Most of this landscaping is gone. In fact, this is a later photo because I know at one time this was a garden, but this was a fountain. Lord of the Here and How. Howdy, good to see you. Thanks for shooting in. This is still there. This is that one-year wonder school. But all this is gone. But you can see that school. This is that glorious church. All of this, the library, old city hall, extending all the way to Victoria Park. Even Stephen Avenue, I would consider. I think that they've purposely reversed the official narrative. They said that there was a fire that burned down all the old wooden buildings. So then the city council said, from now on, it's got to be brick or sandstone. So then all of these buildings popped up. But there's some really old buildings in Calgary that predate the fire of 1886, like the old Calgary Brewery, that's built out of the same material. So I think really what it was that a lot of these beautiful sandstone, really embellished buildings, like that one-year wonder school and the city hall, a lot of these crazy looking buildings are pre-reset. And the fire was the excuse. The fire was probably purposely set as the excuse to kick off the reset. So I don't think these were built after the fire. I think these were built before the fire. And they've just come along and put a date on it. Yeah, Hudson's Bay Company, 1891. We've talked about this photo before. This is only a couple of years before electric and the trolley came in 1905. So this photo was taken sometime between 1891 and 1905. And already there's buried mudflood windows here. So something happened here, and these buildings are before that happened, not after. They like to put things on their head, right? Up is down, down is up. This is just a nice row of old buildings on Stephen Avenue. But this is what the rootin' tootin' cowboys and the cattle ranchers would have seen as they came into town to get supplies. Pioneer Market. The Assistant Receiver General's office. Okay. But these would have been your dry goods, your mercantiles, your furnishing stores. But instead of being made out of wood, they're made out of stone and brick. mean, it's the same thing as all these other towns that they tell us, right, in the US and up here in Canada. But especially that wild, wild west, wild frontier United States, cowboy narrative, right? The wood front buildings with the wooden sidewalks, the dirt streets, the Clint Eastwood movies. And Calgary has that same narrative. I've said it before, I'll say it 1,000 times. They rubber stamp these narratives. They only have a few to go around, and they just Wild West narrative, Calgary. There you go. Cattle and railroad, and they discovered oil in the 1920s. And you get these big, massive. I mean, look at the stupid jalopy. This is the pre-Model A, Model T. This is the open carriage style car that you would have specially made for you. This isn't a Ford or a GM. So we're early on in the narrative here, and we do low windows, big, massive brick building. It's just a company that makes mattresses. It's a bedding company. They make pillows and mattresses. So why do you need to stack it a brick there, Luigi? You gotta bring Luigi and Giuseppe into stack it a brick. For a factory or whatever. It's probably been reclaimed as a mattress maker. Here's the YWCA building. These massive low arch windows for some reason. We see a lot of this in Calgary too. The sandstone foundation with the brick on top, and then they just augment it with more sandstone to kind of carry that color through. Sometimes they fool you. And these sandstone blocks aren't actually big blocks. They're just, 4 or 6 inch thick tiles that they smear on top of, or, stick on top of the brick. And the brick actually goes right down into the ground. So you got to watch. Sometimes it's one or the other. Sometimes they try to fool you with that. Oh, it's the stone foundation. Sometimes it is, sometimes it ain't. I found lots of examples of both here in Calgary. I think what they do is that if they found some post-reset old sandstone structures that were built before the reset around here, and all that remained was the first floor or so, and the rest was, dilapidated, caved in, damaged in some way, they rebuild it with what they can with other sandstone. But then when they start coming in and building brick structures, they add little sandstone details to try to fool you into saying it's all the same time period. Sometimes they reclaim old, half-damaged buildings, and then they just build the rest of it out of brick. And they say, well, that stone underneath is the foundation. Well, no, it's the original building's first floor. It's just something destroyed that building, and you came along and reclaimed it and built on top of it. See it time and time again, old buildings built on top of even older buildings. So this was part of the Victoria Park. It's still the rodeo grounds and exhibition grounds. But this was built for the Dominion exhibition here in Calgary. So this would, again, Canada's version of World Fair. This building is obviously had to go. They can't explain why cowboys need this for some Wild West exhibition. With this tower with this metallic dome roof on it. It's sort of angled 3-armed pavilion building. 2 floors with all of these columns. It's a terrible photo. If I zoom in too much, it gets really picoulated. My apologies. But it's really impressive. Here it is from a different angle. But there's actually a third wing that comes out of it. See everybody wearing the ladies with their dresses and their parasols and umbrellas and stuff. This is the Victorian era. This thing was built in the 1890s, so they say. Howdy, Wiley. Good to see you, bud. Wiley Metz from Montana. So yeah, this place had to go. They can't explain why Cowboys needed that, so goodbye. And I always, when I talk about Calgary, like to end off the photo file with this picture right here. These glorious sandstone buildings with their conical domes, all of this embellished carved work with all of this stone, tight joinery, arches everywhere, lower levels in some cases, so they got to put a gate there or a little fenced off area. Some kind of crazy arch tower thing here. This is Stephen Avenue, by the way. We have all this debris and dirt. Got permanent sidewalks in some cases. Some is wood, but some of it's concrete. And then what do we have? A freaking cow standing in the middle of the road. A cow. Is it any wonder why one of Calgary's nicknames is not only Sandstone City, but Cowtown? This is supposed to be a bustling, young, thriving city that's getting rich off of cattle ranching and fur trading and the railroad. And they've got a bunch of ne'er-do-wells standing around with their hands in their pockets while a cow just wanders in the middle of the downtown core. To this day, this is still part of the downtown core of Calgary. City Hall is you just can't quite see it back here. So you've got this with this. Are you kidding me? So there you go. That's going to finish up the file for not all, but some of the more notable buildings here in Calgary. Built between 1878 and 1930. There's a couple kind of post-WW1. Most are pre-WW1. Back when the narrative was we were rootin' tootin' Wild West, Wild Frontier town with whiskey traders and fur traders and cattle ranches. We had to build forts to protect the wild frontier, and there's the wild Indians. But then meanwhile, we got these massive stone structures that supposedly all popped up at the same time, right after the fire. So in a small city of 4,000 people, I guess everybody got together over a 2-year period and just knocked up all these buildings. And then over the next 10 years, built a couple a year. Because, when it only takes you a year to build one, like that school, give me a break. So I hope you enjoyed that. I'm getting ready to wind this thing down here very quickly. But as promised, before I go off the air, I'm sorry, Beaks. Stuffed Beagle's gone live, I believe, 20 minutes ago. But before I go off the air, I want to do another draw for another New West Reset t-shirt or hat. And again, this is a thank you to all of you for all of your support, and as part of me kind of celebrating a little bit here with my 4-year anniversary of the live show here, and coming up on 5 years on the channel. June will be 5 years on the channel. But a couple of years back, I had some t-shirts made. I recently had a ball cap, a trucker hat style hat made for the channel, just to give out as thank yous for people that supported the channel through PayPal donations or behind the scenes, helping out with research or things like that. During meetups, if you show up for a meetup, you're getting a t-shirt. So in the top half of the show, I did a draw for t-shirt or hat, whatever the case may be. So as a reminder, here's what we've got here. Got the 100% cotton black OG, the original New West Reset logo t-shirt. 100% cotton. Or the Heather Gray Shenanigans New West Reset t-shirt, also 100% cotton. So your choice of those, let me know what size if you win the draw. I got clock socks too, but for this, you get your choice of t-shirt, one or the other. Let me know what size, or the recently printed up Schmutz New West Reset trucker baseball hat. So as mentioned earlier in the show, we did a draw. And I've got the wheel up for the draw, the wheel of names. So if you were not here for the first draw and you would like to be entered for this draw, you just need to be willing to contact me with your mailing address or your contact information, P.O. box or whatever it is, so I can send you the item. And with that, it is a mutual promise that, you keep my address and identity under your hat, and vice versa. I will not let the cat out of the bag, right? I ain't down with doxing people. I just want to give away some t-shirts and hats here. So that's the stipulation, is you got to be willing to share your contact information and just send it to me by email, and then let me know, again, if you want the t-shirt or the hat, if you like the t-shirt, which one and what size you take. Small to double XL, and they're 100% cotton. Type the number 1 in the box in the chat if you would like to be entered into the draw. If you were entered in the first draw and did not win, I'm keeping you in the draw. And again, postage paid, everything. You ain't gonna have to pay or do a thing. This is my way of thanking all of you for all of your support. Wiley Metz. Yes, let's add Wiley. Okay, Wiley's put a 1 in. All right. When is the next meetup, Frankie? KJ asking. Probably in the summer. I tend not to do winter meetups. That would not be the most fun around these here parts. Generally around June or July, which is usually, June's the anniversary of when I started my channel. So I usually do it around June or July. June is because it's before the Stampede. If I do it in July, it's going to be later July, after the rodeo, the Stampede, because that's a big whole 10-day brouhaha in its own right. This year, it's not so much a question of when as where. I've already done a lot of the really interesting, or I think almost all of the really interesting older neighborhoods. So, it could be a little bit of a challenge. Who knows? Maybe we'll do a meetup and do a walkabout mudflood tour of my neighborhood right here in Sunalta. Sunalta/Scarborough, in the Beltline here. Lord knows there's plenty to look at. Yeah, we could go sledding if we do a winter meetup. That's right. Get some hot chocolate, some hot cocoa, put some little marshmallows in it, and do some sledding down that hill by my place. Yes, you are. Yes, you are. Sandra, you are on the draw list. All right. So we've added Wiley. So we've got Turtle, Kenley Jackson, KJ, Channel 53, Michelangelo, Baja, Ross at Water the Tree, Russ, Bradley Johnson, Odin's Raven, Hippie Shake, Sandra, that's Yas Gurley, and Wiley Metz. All right, we're ready to give it a spin. A countdown from 3. And 3, 2, 1. Booyah! Winner, chicken dinner, channel 53. Channel 53. There you go. Channel 53 is the winner. So there you have it. So yeah, just email me with your contact information, and again, your preference, whether you want the t-shirt or the hat, and if you want the t-shirt, which one and what size you wear. And they're men's t-shirts, so again, men's sizing, obviously, on those. They are made here in North America. The t-shirts, I believe, are made in Canada. They're printed at a local print shop right here in Sunalta, right at the end of my street, like 6 blocks from me. So local stuff, not made. The images, I came up with the images. I designed the t-shirts. It's none of this AI BS. This is all from me. And again, it's a thank you to all of you for all of your support. So congratulations again to Angel Dreams and Channel 53 for the New West Reset swag. So I'm getting ready to wind this thing down here very, very shortly. Again, thank you, everyone, for all of your support. I really, really appreciate that, as always. Before I go, I'd like to leave you with a couple of laughs here. I know it's rough with the cold weather, right? I mean, there's only so much I can do as a Canadian who's used to the cold, who lives close to the mountains. Albeit I get breaks from the cold in the winter, but you know, the first 10 years of my life were in Montreal, Quebec over there, and it ain't exactly toasty in the winter over them parts. So I do what I can to give you advice, but sometimes you just got to make the best of it, like this. That's all you can do. That duck had the time of his life. Let's see that again. You can literally hear him quacking for joy. You got to just make the best of it. That's all you can do. I mean, it's nothing wrong with having a little fun in the winter. Don't be reckless, but just make the best of it. Just got to hang on tight and grin and bear it. Just white knuckling it through winter. Don't forget, today's February the 1st, or at least around here in my time zone. February 1st, one day closer to spring. You know, but just, you know what you got to do for these final long, cold, dark winter days. What you've got to do is you've got to keep yourself busy with stuff, right? Like I said, you like prepare for power outages and stuff like that. Do what you can, so you don't have to run to the store to buying batteries and candles and canned goods. Have some of that stored away just in case something pops off in your neck of the woods. You know what I'm saying? But sometimes just keep yourself busy with indoor hobbies. You know, if you don't have to go outside when it's really cold, because it can get dangerous, you know, so you have like hobbies or interests that you can do indoors. And then when it warms up, you know, yes, you switch to outdoor stuff that you like to do if you're an outdoorsy person, right? But you can keep yourself busy with stuff like this. You know, this is pretty good.
Tried pine cone jam.
Have you ever tried barbecue hammers?
I'm not going to lie. Barbecued hammers sounds delicious. All right. And with that, that is going to seal the deal here for Frankie, New West Reset and New West Reset Live, episode 156. 4 years of the live show. We had to look at some old Calgary photographs. Again, links below for everything we covered, as well as how you can get a hold of the fella. Please, please, please do not forget to send me your contact information via email to get your prize winnings. So until the next one, take care out there and have yourselves a good one. We'll see you Wednesday for vintage footage, Friday, boots on the ground, and back here next week for the live show. All right?
It's a mystery! It's a mystery wrapped in a riddle inside an enigma!